Still the Eastern Business Report on the Afia Business Morning. And like I did tell you, I would have Afia Chief Correspondent Nathalie Ukwu in the studio with me. And of course, Elijah will be joining us from Nsukka to talk about the issues concerning the flood in Ugwoye and Nsukka on businesses. Nathalie, good morning. Elijah, of course, will join us. But good morning. Let me welcome you first. You've been following this story. I would say much to the worry of a lot of people who had hoped it would stay quiet. So let me bring this thing back to business. We saw Elijah's last report, which complained about a lot of businesses having to close, transporters going through this. As this story has progressed, have you seen any improvements in maybe any action being taken by the local governments?
Good morning, Nambi. Thank you for having me. Yes, I would want to, really speak about the actions of the local government. Now, the local government is trying to come up with a temporary solution, trying to find a way to make sure that the impact is mitigated. I heard they're putting together a structure that is supposed to help with the collection of the water along that axis. So basically a large water reservoir will collect on, so to speak, that will help with that situation temporarily. But the issue that they're having right now, like he rightly pointed out during the interview, the fact that they have this rainy season challenge. Because of the rain, of course, the regular thing contractors say, things will not dry as fast, it could affect constructions negatively. So I'm seeing a lot more proactive action being taken from the local government level because that is the jurisdiction. He's supposed to do that. But where I'm concerned about is the Ministry of Environment. Because when I was speaking with the Commissioner for Environment, it seemed like, well, he did say during a phone call that the challenge is beyond the ministry. And what he meant by beyond the ministry was that he was saying that other agencies have to get involved, NEMA, SEMA, and the rest of them. I don't see any real responsibility being taken for that challenge. I don't see the residents saying things like the Commissioner for Environment came through, he said this, he put this in place, he did this for us. I don't see that. I see a situation where Engineer Sokwa is doing what he can on his own as local government chairman, but I'm not really seeing steps being taken by the ministry.
So, I mean, this particular issue of this flood is not new. I think the first news reports I saw of it might be almost 10 years ago. And we've seen, different commissioners, governors attack it. Speaking of continuity, is it that the Ministry of Environment does not have any information from the former, the former people who were at the ministry? Because, they should be on top of this situation, one, I think. And secondly, the local government chairman, even while they're talking about a temporary solution, I know he was also talking about contractors and their work on the road. And remember, I said something long ago that I said this whole problem is down to drainage.
Yes.
That's what the contractor that did the road. If I'm to, put blame anywhere, the contractors that built the road. We had local government chairman talk about them not having serviceable chambers at intervals. So that means that once it's closed, you really have to reopen and start removing debris and all that. So that's it. But let me bring it back to the Ministry of Environment and the businesses in the area, which means there are other governments. Is there any, the business community now? I know we have the Nsukka Chamber of Commerce, Industry, and we have other bodies that is anybody even looking out for the businesses? Has anybody even brought up any complaints on behalf of businesses? Or are they leaving the transporters, shop owners, and keke riders to fend for themselves?
I'm not aware at this point of any action being taken for the businesses or in the area of evacuation, so to speak. What I'm aware of is that there is a sensitization drive to let people know that when traveling, they should avoid that particular route when it rains. That there are other routes that they can apply, which the local government chairman also spoke about during the interview and was still going to continue to circulate. So that is what we know. But about the residents and businesses they are there. I don't know of any step. And I think that will now behold the ministry to come and say what they're doing about that. But right now, I know for the school that was affected, the community primary school, Enugu Road 1 and Enugu Road 2 primary school, they're all in the same compound. Those pupils who were affected in one of the classroom blocks have been moved to another block where they are continuing their lecture. But then it still doesn't take away the fact that mosquitoes would be the equation.
I was going to ask, their field is still flooded, stagnant water, mosquitoes, all those things. They can't move them away from the school completely till it's done.
It's almost like a natural disaster at this point. It's a flood. It's a natural disaster because it's heavy rain that leads to the flood. But where it's troubling is Monday's rain was not that heavy. It was what residents described as just rain. It wasn't as heavy as before, but it still got flooded.
So that means we're having trapped water.
Yes.
Basically, something about the topography and the drainage, and maybe everybody's water when it rains, they've just made themselves look. And this is where we talk about of environment. Do they have geological information? Do we know anything about the structure of the? We know Nsukka is hilly. There are a lot of hills, valleys, peaks, and is that place a drainage? Is it a river basin where the people build up in the wrong area? Is anybody giving out all this information, or are we just saying let's find out how we remove water?
Well, I aside from let's find out to remove water, I've also seen Nsukka, which is another body that we have to talk about at this point.
Yeah.
Now, we heard from sources claims that were very troubling, and I've not seen Nsukka come out to denounce those claims, or Nsukka come out to tell us the facts or to set the record straight. Afia TV carried out a report on a school that was affected. And then we started to receive allegations that the chairman was after the teachers who spoke, saying that they will be queried, there will be sanction action taken against them. So what I see is a dearth of information. We don't have enough anywhere as to what is actually being done. What we have what we're receiving are more of calls from people asking, they want to know who the reporter is, they want to know who said what to whom and how that may have impacted this story. That is what we're seeing. But what I would hope for is the answer to the question you're asking me as to what is actually being... the local government chairman has tried to improve the sanitation drive.
Yeah.
You're seeing more people trying to clean up the area, trying to sensitize people on proper waste disposal, trying to, like we talked about, the temporary solution to it. But there is obviously need for more because it's unbelievable. People will see that video and ask, is this a road? Is this a road in Enugu? There's a dearth of information about it. And honestly, I don't think this would have been taken very seriously if Afia TV did not bring it to the
I agree 100%. I mean, it's funny how the Enugu State, and how Nsukka themselves, the Enugu State Education Board, themselves, who should have been at the forefront of complaining that their students had no access to class, were trying to, allegedly gag teachers. And I think that's very unfortunate. But I will say I'm very grateful to Father Mbodile for trying to get us access, to these people to speak out, even though they still wore their cloak of invisibility. But we must always give credit where credit is due. And we must appreciate Father Mbodile for his attempts to get information out for us. But, seeing that if we're saying that there's this not wanting people to speak. So if Nsukka is saying teachers should not speak, the commissioner is, the local government chairman is out there complaining, saying there are many issues, but we're hearing nothing from Ministry of Environment. One of the biggest stakeholders.
Interviewed the commissioner for environment, but
so when I say nothing from Ministry of Environment, I asked for some specific things. Is there geological information out there? Are there things people need to know? Is that a drainage? Is that a basin? Is that a valley? It's almost as if, because if this information is there, you won't have contractors who just come and lay asphalt and put drainage, not knowing where they need to channel water away, which is my issue. So does it feel like there's any cooperation, or does it feel like everybody's working on their own?
It feels like there is cooperation because I'm made aware of strategic meetings that have been had pertaining to Ugwoye. I do understand sources said that the governor made an inquiry and insisted on knowing what was going on in Ugwoye. Actually asked for a proper report on that from everybody that was involved, especially during the time of the primary school flooding. Because as you know, education is 33% in Enugu. We can describe it as that. So essentially, there is some kind of cooperation, but what I would say is that some players are more active than others.
Okay, some players more active than others. I think I like that. Let's move now live to Nsukka, where Elijah should have joined us now. Good morning, Elijah.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, good to know. So let me start from here. How are business owners faring at Ugwoye now? Are they able to open their shops? Are transporters able to move? How is the flood affecting them right now on ground?
Okay, from the last report I made, most of the business persons I spoke to were heartbroken about the effect of this flood on their businesses. In fact, one of the respondents cried out loud, saying that because of the flooding, each time the flood happens, throughout the whole day, they don't sell, they don't enter their shops. In fact, once the flood begins and you are outside your shop, whether your shop is closed or open, that's how it's going to remain until you are able to find access to enter the shop, to close perhaps your door or whatever you use to secure your place of business. Whereas this is happening, I remember the second story that I covered at that same location. I was able to speak to this particular woman who took us into her shop to show us the level at which the water gets to when the flood happens. In fact, it covers as far as half of her fridge, which she keeps on the ground. So of course, that's a huge damage. On top of the same issue that other persons record. Then yesterday's report also showed us the same level of damage that people encounter, because it's still the same thing that happened the last time that repeated itself yesterday. And until the water disperses, until the water leaves the road, people can't pass. There won't be any movement. But at least the waters are no more there now. There's no rain, so people are passing easily.
Elijah, there's a question I've been waiting to ask. Everybody is talking about, repair of the road, fixing of the roads and all that. Is anybody talking about any sort of compensation for the people whose goods were damaged by this flood? Because you've mentioned now the business owner who has, halfway up a fridge, that compressor is gone. Nobody needs to say, and whatever inventory is inside that refrigerating system is damaged. Is anybody talking about compensation, any sort of money or anything to assist those who have been victims of what is essentially damage not of their own making?
Anyways, we'll first of all even talk about clearing the water off the road. I'm sure as at this point, nobody is even reasoning about compensation. People's businesses have been stopped. People's property has been damaged. Nobody's talking about any compensation anywhere. I've not heard of such. Okay, but then the primary desire of the people is something should be permanently done about the road, because this is their experience every rainy season. This is their experience. So I've not heard of anybody mention anything compensation for the people who are victims of this at that community.
Okay, have we heard anything? Has there been any maybe stakeholder meeting, maybe any meeting between the local government chairman and the traders and business people in the area? Have they even had discussions with them?
Okay, for my last findings, there hasn't been any of such reports. So my last conversation with the local government chairman, he said that his team are working on it to make sure that such a thing, the occurrence, this flooding something is handled, and I hope they are doing so. But as for the traders themselves, my last conversation with them, there hasn't been any meeting, there hasn't been any conversation or anybody reaching out to tell them that they are aware of what is happening and they are working on it. There hasn't been any from my latest findings.
Okay, Elijah, just one more thing before you go. Apart from the shop owners, another business that is affected very badly is the transporters who have to ply that route. Has this affected, being that now they might have to take other routes and circumvent that area, has this affected the cost of transportation in Nsukka at all? Is it impacting in any way?
Yes, of course. These are ripple effects of the flood. Okay, so that two things happen when this flood happens. Number one is that people no longer take that express road, and that road is a major road that connects people going towards OP or going to Enugu. But when this happens, people are forced to begin to look for other dimensions or other routes they can take. And of course, it becomes a ripple effect that shows up at the cost of transportation. And then secondly, people just avoid the road. Okay, so you don't even see people taking that path. And those who want to, depending on where they are going, perhaps there's no other path that leads to where they are going. They are forced to ply through the road, and you see them wading through the water. In fact, it was heartbreaking because I had to walk through that part during my last. In fact, all the stories I've covered, I went through that part to see, just to have a first-hand experience of what these people pass through. And of course, I also had my own share of their experiences because my clothes were messed up. In fact, some of the heavy vehicle drivers, they don't take it easy when wading through the water. You just see them splashing water everywhere, and pedestrians who are trying to meander their way through the water just get drenched and their dress is messed up. So, of course, this flooding affects the cost of transportation, and then secondly, it affects transporters from moving from their safe destination to their desired places, or where they are to where they want to get to.
I mean, I think it's safe at this point to say that our hearts go out to the pedestrians applying the Ugwoye road because of the possibility of being splashed. Now, I have a question for you, Elijah. How long on average does it take for the flood to evaporate or drain? Walk us through the timelines.
Okay, most often, depending on when this happens, it takes a whole day, because from the last respondent who I spoke to, that was yesterday, he said that just as this flood has happened, they don't do any other thing throughout the day. Like the whole day is gone. So they have to wait till perhaps towards the next day so that this water can find their way to flow into wheresoever destination they can find. So it takes a whole working day for the water to wade off.
All right.
All right, Elijah, thank you very much. We'll keep following this very, very upsetting scenes from Nsukka. But thank you very much, Elijah, for keeping us posted on this. We'll get back to that story. So, Nathalie, coming back to you just as we round up, just one thing now. What do you think now with regards to now, after we've known that businesses are damaged, people's livelihoods are affected, what is the one step the government needs to take now? The
government needs to act. The government needs to go in there, find out what is wrong and fix it. It's not impossible.
I mean, everybody's talking of fixing the road.
Fixing the road, yes.
I'm saying fixing the people. Because the businesses have lost.
Elijah said something very important, that the traders have not acknowledged any engagement yet with the local government chairman. So the government needs to, as a matter of urgency, find some kind of alternative for these people. If this flooding is going to possibly last till the end of the rainy season, that's a lot of months to be submerged.
Yeah.
I know it sounds unrealistic to say that they should be moved to an alternate area.
Yeah.
It is quite, but then the government, that's why these meetings have to yield results daily. And these people need to be followed up to the T. Every day there should be some sort of a report on what has been done about Ugwoye. It's very important. So those people, they have to be moved to other areas. If there's some kind of alternate accommodation they can be given by choice. If they decide to, they can use that till the end of the rainy season, till this problem is solved. Because this could really become a huge disaster. We've heard of children being washed away by flood waters and all of that. So before it happens, before there's a story like that, a step in the relocation dimension will be a step in the right direction.
I hope, that some relocation happens, because the worry is informal sector people. Many of them make their money on a daily basis.
That's true.
People who have to make money every day and haven't made money for days, and we hope something happens too. Thank you so much, Nathalie, for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure to have you on the Business Morning. Makes it a lot brighter.
Always a pleasure to have me here.
Wow. That's all we can take on the Eastern Business Report. Stay tuned on channel GSTV channel 254, 17 on Go TV, and of course 748 on Free TV. Till I see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for another edition of Afia Business Morning. I'm Nnamdi Abaya, saying have a profitable business day.